Thank you so much for tuning into this webcast with the amazing Sam James. I'm so excited to be bringing her onto this webcast to talk about all things fitness related in our world. So, Sam James is an award-winning educator, presenter, group fitness instructor, PT, and she is a UK disability fitness expert. And she's an all-round good gal. So I wanted to chat to her, and we've got some pertinent questions that we really think is going to help you work better with this clientele. So Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure, and thank you for having me. So I obviously wanted to come on today because obviously being a tutor and also working with those disabled clients, which I've done for the past decade, is that what I've noticed is the lack of uptake for people that want to get qualified to work with disabled people, or the fact that there is an alarming number of like FitPro's that are working with disabled people that are not qualified to work with them, yet the disabled people are having to leave them and having to go to therapy because of the amount of bullying that takes place, the amount of that these say the non-disabled qualified ones, obviously they think that they know how to work with them but don't understand how the condition actually affects them, how it fluctuates, and so then that affects that disabled person for life. Like I got a client that was bullied by her last PT, and 3-4 years on she's still having therapy, and that's what I really want to cut out, because a disabled person should not be put off from exercise by working with someone that does not understand disability.
Absolutely. I think it's for me, Sam, what's really important is that a lot of PTs and group exercise instructors want to please. And they really don't want to be turning people away, and rightly so, because everyone has the right to exercise. So there's this really fine line of knowing, you know, what is my scope of practice? What do I feel comfortable with? I don't know how to turn people away because I can't legally. It's a really hard thing where people want to please. But, you know, I remember you talking about this client who was significantly affected by somebody who really hadn't understood the person's condition. And I think we're going to dig deep in these questions that are really going to highlight some areas we can all work on. Yeah. And one of the things I want to say to the FitPro community, this is a conversation about inclusivity, you know, and lived experience from Sam. You know, Sam is an advocate for inclusivity and disability awareness and stuff, and myself too. I think what's really, really important is Sam is not an ambassador for every single person who's living with a disability. This is her experience, her point of view, and I'm just really, you know, we've had really exciting conversations about this. So let's get to our first question.
And actually, I did forget to say that I have a disability myself. So I have cerebral palsy. So I've got actual lived experience of having a disability, and I have a experience of working with PTs before I qualified, and it wasn't a great one. So actually, when I qualified, I wanted to make sure that every disabled person had a right to actually work with a suitably qualified fitness professional and have that knowledge and education that they so rightly deserve when paying someone.
Absolutely. And another thing we've got to recognize is that also there's lots of people who could be in our fitness industry as well, who perhaps don't know where to turn to get the education to also, you know, like what you're doing, Sam, you know, with your lived experience.
And I know I recently trained up a PT with CP actually
Yeah.
in the disability qualification, and he didn't even have a clue that there was a disability qualification and that you had to have it to work with disabled clients. So it is getting it out there that there is a level 3 disability qualification which you need to work with disabled clients. And you really, if you are working with disabled clients, you need to check your insurance to make sure if you need this qualification or not. And that's always my first thing I always say to FitPro's: always check your insurance. Don't assume. And if they say yes, get it in writing, because if you don't get a claim and you've only got a verbal recognition, that's not going to stand up against your claim when it actually comes down to it.
Sure. And probably good segue. Well done. You can always speak to Darren in the office. He's our FitPro insurance specialist. He's amazing and he will help you with all of that. So let's get to that first question. So what do you think stops people engaging in exercise who've got a disability?
I think the first one is obviously is lack of knowledge. So it's having that knowledge of that condition. So take me, at the self-portrait CP. A lot CP is a neurological condition. There's a lot of misconceptions out there that it's a learning disability, but it's not a learning disability. It is a pure physical disability. Yes, you can have other conditions on top of that, but it's a movement disorder. It is a neurological condition, and it's knowing that it's non-progressive at heart, but it's progressive every age. So it's a very complex condition. So if you're working with someone with CP and you don't know what you're doing, you could do more harm than good. And this is why people with disabilities are scared to work with FitPro's, because they don't want to make themselves, their condition, worse than it actually currently is. They want to improve it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they might look at the videos that PTs and that put out, and it's super high intense. They they go they got all these super goals, but a goal for a disabled person is not going to be as strong as possible. It's not going to be, I want to lose your this weight. It is so they can get up out of bed, be able to either get in the shower, transfer into the shower, and maintain their sort of daily independence and what they can do daily for as long as possible. So the goals are completely different. Yes, they might be unachievable goals to start with, but that's your long-term goals, and you break it down to show very smaller goals so that they can actually, within 4 or 5 years, they might reach that goal. But it's a very long process. If you can get a disabled client, they are a client for life. They're not going to be with you for 3 months, 6 months. They will be with you for life, because they need to be able to have you like once a week, long term, to make sure that they are actually doing what they can to either avoid going into a wheelchair, to make sure they don't need care, that they can wipe their arse for as long as possible. If that's me, I rather be able to wipe my own arse as long as possible. I don't want someone else coming in doing that for me. And that is the case for a lot of disabled people. So the goals are completely shift, and it's for that FitPro to be able to recognise that we can't have the same programme as a non-disabled person. It is making sure that programme is tailored to us. They find out what we can and cannot do. That's the number one thing that they don't do. They might give exercises that client can do, or they're too focused on technique, and our technique goes out the window. When you work with a disabled client, you do not follow the textbook technique. You follow that person's technique, and you let that client guide you into their technique. So if a FitPro show me squat and they were like a hardcore on technique, they'll be having kittens, because they'll be like, your knees aren't out, why are your knees coming in? But that's how I squat, and I can't physically change my gait to squat with my knees outwards. So technically that's your technique just goes out the window, and it's about encouraging movement. That's all we're doing. It's encouraging that movement of that client to make sure that they're moving for as long as possible until their body actually says, no, I can't do this. I physically cannot do this anymore.
Okay. And when you're obviously talking about sort of FitPro's and stuff like that, what about the facilities and that making barriers? Yeah, okay.
So again, it's having that accessibility. So accessibility is big, and it starts with a website. So a lot of websites are not accessible. They do not state they've got a disabled entrance. They don't state their actual if they've got a qualified instructor, for example, if they even got if a disabled person's able to go onto the exercise referral program, or if they've got a inclusive membership. Yes, you get a bigger change do, but a lot of the smaller brands or smaller chains don't even do a disabled membership for free carer. Now, if a disabled person can't
Yeah.
have a free carer, they won't go full stop. Yet, it's next year, it's coming into Europe, there's a new Accessibility Act where every website has to be accessible to disabled clients. I don't know when it's going to come into the UK, but it will come into the UK at some point. So it's very vital that people are thinking now, if they've got websites, they are thinking, even if they're self-employed or they work, if it's a gym chain, whatever, they need to make sure that they have all that accessibility for disabled people on the website before this app comes in.
Yes.
It's better to have it prepared now than not
Yeah.
prepared. But it's also, I know, with smaller gyms where they have the PTs parking the disabled bays to get closer to the door. So that means a wheelchair user can't go there because they need the extra space to get the wheelchair out the car, because they will have the wheelchair next to them on the seat. They need to get the chair bit out, reach behind for the wheels, put it back together again. And that's why those spaces exist. I know I'm not in a wheelchair, but I need a disabled bay because I need the door fully open for me to get in and out. I physically can't get in and out the car if I got like that much space. Again, if a car parks really close to me, I can't get in the passenger side because I can't climb over. And it's all these little things that need to be thought about. Is the disabled changing rooms free or cleaning equipment? Because it's a very big one that they think, oh, it's a big changing room. Oh, I can just store all the cleaning equipment here. Forgetting that that might be for a disabled person. It might be locked all the time. What's the point if a disabled person comes and they go to use it and then they've got to walk all the way back to reception again to get a key? And then, or again, with the toilets, the red cord needs to be right to the floor. A lot of the time it's tied up where people can't even reach it, shut down, let alone if they fall on the floor and they need to call someone. So it's all these little things that, and actually, reception staff, making sure reception staff know how to talk to disabled clients, knowing that if they've got a learning disability, they might not be able to read or write, and that they might need help to book onto things or help with payment if they're on their own and independent. Don't ever assume that all disabled people have carers. If they don't, a lot of disabled people, even those with learning disabilities, can be independent and they're able to come and work out by themselves.
Yeah, amazing. And that's the interesting thing. I remember us talking about it, and some chain or some facilities actually charging carers to come along. And by right, the carer should be able to come free, right? Yeah, interesting.
If
Okay,
that carer is supporting that client and if they're not physically in a workout for themselves, then they are free. Yes, in some cases they might have to get onto a treadmill next to their client to motivate their client to do it. And this is a difference. So if they're just doing it, and you can see them going, come on, you've got to do what I'm doing, then that is them supporting their client to do that workout. Especially if they've got like a learning disability, their distraction goes, they need to do the exercise to that client for them to do it. But they're not doing it for their workout, they're doing it as a motivational tool.
absolutely.
And you can tell, you know the difference. When you watch them, you'll know a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. So why should disabled people exercise? And more importantly, why should non-disabled people advocate for this offering?
So a lot of disabilities. I can't talk. I start again. There's a lot of disabilities out there where exercise is actually really beneficial for that condition. So 90% of the neurological conditions, there's a couple that you can't exercise with, but most of them you can. It actually helps improve the nervous system. It helps read up responses. It helps loosen the muscles. So like I got spastic CP. So if I don't exercise and I don't move, my muscles become very tight very quickly, which then causes pain, which then stops the movement, it stops you from walking. If I'm actually being physically active, it means that those muscles are being kept loose. I'm actually increasing the signals of my nervous system around the body, which means that my walking gets better, my posture gets better, my reaction times gets better. So it means that like with CP, we get the startle effect. So if we have a someone comes up to us suddenly, we can just jump, fall over, and we're not expecting it. But if we exercise and improve our nervous system, it helps reduce that down. You're still going to get it, but it just helps the occurrence down. Certain disabilities as we age, it will either be progressive or the aging process makes it progressive, and we are more likely to start the aging process up to 10 years earlier. So we can start it in our early 20s and not our early 30s. So this means that we could be getting I got diagnosed with osteoarthritis at 25. So we need to be making sure that they're exercising like an older adult would for the same reasons. We need to start earlier to prevent or help prevent the decay of osteo conditions, especially like knee injuries, hip injuries. If we have got a movement disorder, that means that when we move, that means we're going to have impact on our bodies. So, like if my CP, because it affects my legs, I have like what I call CP walk. So I walk in a certain way, but because of that, I had a spinal injury last year, so I was out for 6 months. But what I didn't know is it's a bulging disc. That is very common with CP, and I didn't know about it. It's due to the way you walk, the spine will move, the disc will move, and it's going to come out. And now I'm sort of trying to educate people with CP. They need to do lower back exercises and core exercises to try and prevent it from happening. So if the actual fitness pro knows about all these sort of little issues and they're working with a disabled client, it really helps them. But also, there's 76% of disabled people that are not active and they want to be more active. So, and in a way, if a disabled FitPro can advocate for disability fitness, it's going to showcase and put them in a very good light. Not many FitPros actually specialise in disability. They all want to specialise in older adults, but they're too scared to specialise in disability, yet the principle is exactly the same. Exactly the same. There's nothing, if you know about the conditions, you understand the conditions, it is really easy and the most rewarding job you could ever do is to work with a disabled client.
Sure. I think it's worth mentioning, isn't it, on the educations, and I've been an educator on many quals, that there's often a little subsection of how do you work with this client group, you know, pregnancy, kids, people with a disability, you know, and it's like older adults. And those sessions are really small as part of the syllabus, you know. And so I did the disability qual years ago now. I found it really fascinating, you know, and I felt I perhaps had a fairly good understanding beforehand, but what did I learn? Some astonishing.
It's funny because I did mine 10 years ago when I did the first qualification I did after my level 2, and literally I obviously when I tutored it, I qualified as a tutor to tutor it, and I watched one to start with. I went to have a refresher of it because obviously it's 10 years ago since I did it, and obviously it's a different awarding body. So I went to just come on. I was tutor for Sarah, and I actually got Sarah do a course because I needed to get back into it and see what content she's delivering. And it's good to do it again in a way because I had a complete refresher. It's changed in 10 years. And other conditions have changed. So literally you do go into the certain conditions. You actually go into counter contradictions of what you cannot do with certain disabilities. Because believe it or not, I surprise people by saying, if you don't know what you're doing, with some disabilities you can cause death.
Absolutely.
And that's what people don't understand, that they can't actually cause death. Or with some conditions like CP, there's a lot of high risk of a comorbidity of a cardiac condition. So if you don't understand what people just think CP, I could do that, but they don't understand other conditions that is linked to CP as what you can get as you get older. If that person is CP that's fit and healthy, they don't realise they could have high blood pressure, for example, which is very common with CP, then that means they could be working out, but they could have more increased risk of a stroke. So then they might then have a stroke because of being put through to a high intense exercise program which their body can't cope with. And as a FitPro, I know that I wouldn't want that on my conscience, knowing that I caused have someone with a disability to have a stroke or another stroke, basically.
Sure. Absolutely.
And, it's making sure that you know your scope of practice, knowing, yes, you can say no to a disabled client, or say, I can't work with you, but I'll show someone that can. And that shows how professional you are. I think if someone took me on as a client and they go, oh, I don't know CP, I would rather you say, I'd rather you say, oh, I'm not qualified to work with you, but I know someone that can, than to try and muddle through and then you do something that is
Wrong.
dangerous and could affect me longer term or put me in a wheelchair, essentially, which I don't want to do until I really have to be put into, go into a wheelchair. I know as I get older it'll happen, but I'm trying to prevent it for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
And actually, that I think even though the disability logo is a person in a wheelchair, only 8% of disabled people are actually in a wheelchair. So you've got 92% of disabled people that are ambulant, they can walk, or they might use walking aids. So actually, it's only a very small percentage that use a wheelchair. Yet everything is geared around wheelchair users, and it shouldn't be. You've got a whole diverse spectrum of disabilities, how it affects everyone. And I could have CP, you could have CP, and we both present very, very differently.
Absolutely. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on whether you think somebody with a disability, there's maybe some generalizations about fitness facilities, fitness professionals. You're saying like 76% of people would like to exercise. Some of those, they're genuine barriers because, they literally, there's not somewhere that they can access. But do you also feel that perhaps sometimes people are writing it off because, for example, there may be a chain who has trained every instructor to be an advocate for disability. They're all qualified, all capable, brilliant. But on the website, it doesn't say that they have that provision. So, but I just was curious of whether, from your experience working with your clients, whether they feel that a non-disabled person can't look after them as well as somebody who is with a disability. I don't know, what are your thoughts on perhaps some misconceptions?
I think I know with me that I think I've been in the industry like over 10 years now, but I've built up a very good knowledge and caseload of clients that I got a very good reputation, especially working with people with neuro conditions and CP. And I know in like a CP group I'm in, I will have people queuing up to work with me because I understand CP. And what they come to me is they've worked with other PTs and they don't have that understanding there. But when I talk about the qualification, they haven't done that qualification. So I think it could be slightly different if they were qualified.
Yes.
Again, it's also, I educate disabled people to ask FitPro's to see their certificates, to ask about their qualifications. A lot of them assume. And last week, I actually I got a bit annoyed because I saw Joe Witt sat in a wheelchair, up like this, doing a move, and he's trying to tap into the disability market. And we all know he's not qualified to work with disabled people, and probably 98% of my clients could not do the move that he was doing in the picture. So I shared it into the CP group that I'm in, and literally they all thought he was qualified to work with everyone.
Right.
And this is the assumption that they make. And one girl goes, but he's qualified in his field. And I said, he's qualified to work with a reasonably healthy adult. He's not qualified to work with you.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand that the counter contradictions to exercise, what you cannot do, what and actually I said, look at that picture. I know 98% of my clients can't even do that move. That says it all.
Yes.
And the
Interesting.
fact is, he's not, he doesn't use a wheelchair every day. So why is he sat in a wheelchair? Because that is a big no-no. That's a big no-no in the disability community. If you are not in a wheelchair, you sit on a static chair. That is the first thing that I would have an issue with.
I did see that, and I thought, I wonder, it was interesting for me as a non-disabled person. I was thinking, not so sure about that. So I was curious to see what you would think, but also perhaps the extended community that you have. Interesting.
So they think, I think, again, it's that two-sided thing. Because he's a famous person, they think he's qualified to do work with everyone. There's behind this in the actual fitness community, not many FitPros like him because he just taps into everything into man and he's not qualified to do so. If he had every qualification going,
Yeah.
it'd be different. But I think where he tries and taps in and he doesn't work with people like me that have got that experience and that knowledge. I think that's where FitPro's have an issue with him. Yet the people like the general public haven't got a clue about how the fitness industry works, how about our qualifications work, and that's why I always try and educate the general people. They need to ask to see the certificates. Don't take
Yes.
their words of mouth. Ask to see the certificates.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had disabled people ask me. I've got a photo album on my phone. I've got copies of them all, and I just go, there you go, and they can actually see. And
Yes.
I don't get offended. I actually think good on them because they're looking after their bodies. They're looking after themselves. And if a FitPro gets angry with someone asking them, I always say they're not qualified.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never ever been asked by anybody to provide certificates. Like you, I have like them all on my phone in Dropbox, and I have like a little folder. And there's so many, I'm like going through them, and go, how many have I done? But no one has ever asked me. And and it's an interesting one, isn't it? That when I first started in the industry, there weren't these quals. Right, there wasn't the ability to specialize and stuff, so there were these sort of gray areas of who do you work with, who can. Now it's quite clear, we need the qual, and let's be working on those. I'm going to go for our next question. So what's the best way? This is a real broad question. You can answer it however you want. What's the best way to communicate with these clientele, this group? Thoughts.
Like anyone else, just talk to them. If they've got a carer, do not talk to the carer because that is, I've seen that happen. And literally, the carer might respond, but you always talk to that client. You always talk to that disabled client. If if they got a hearing, like if they're deaf, so the deaf community don't like hearing impaired. They prefer the word deaf. They like to be known as deaf, not hearing impaired. So it's knowing like some basic signs or have an app on your phone. I've got an app on my phone that you can download. You type in the word you want to say and you can learn the sign there and then. And I learned that in the gym, so I learned how to say quicker, slower. I can move on to the next thing. I learned certain moves for the gym, so that the stuff that I was saying all the time, I learned the signs for them to help me out. But if if they're deaf and they've got a carer, first of all, you need to be face on with them so they can lip read. Because most of them, and don't ever go like that because obviously you go like that and they're lip reading you, they can't see your mouth. But also, yes, the carer might be there shining or talking in their own way to that client, or they might respond because they're non-verbal. But you always talk to that client and you treat them like an adult in their own right. Just because they've got a disability, just because their body works a different way, just because they might be non-verbal, doesn't mean they've not got a brain and they can't use it. You treat them like you would your mum or your sister or your brother. If that is your brother or sister, treat them how you treat your brother and sister. Actually talk to them, and they might, if you find that they're more visual and you're in the gym, get some like pet cards, some put like pictures of the equipment in, and you can put in the order that you got a bit of Velcro and you put them on, so the order they're going to do. And often enough, if a carer is a good carer, the carer will do that for you. And that, or if a carer needs to take pictures of the gym, and you do it, because this is going to help them come into the gym. Also be aware that if they've got a sensitivity to noise, that music's got to come down, and don't be afraid to turn the music down, because it's better that you keep a disabled client happy than a non-disabled client happy, because a non-disabled client could just bring that in headphones and music and have it wrapped up high.
Yes.
A disabled client can't do that. So have the music down low. Also talk to them. Find out what they like, what they don't like. Because you don't, I've been put on, God, before I was qualified, every PT only put me on a treadmill and the cross trainer in the gym. I absolutely hate the cross trainer to save my life. And every PT, all they put me on, they didn't get me on any weight. They just assumed I could only do cardio. And actually, for disabled people, strength training is more important than cardio. It's better to do a quick warm up on the rower or a treadmill, and get them into the weights area. And if they ask to go on the cross trainer, but I know in my experience, a lot of disabled people hate the cross trainer. They much prefer the rower.
It is asking questions, isn't it? Absolutely. And having,
I know the qualification me and Sarah always are saying is get to know your client. And you know, just because they've got a disability doesn't mean that we live a completely different life to everyone else. If we don't, we can work, we can have relationships, we can go out with our friends and get drunk. So literally, but people always think we can't. They think that we have this sort of alien life to everyone else. Yet we have exactly the same life. Most disabled people do work if they can work. You know, be part-time, full-time, whatever. But look, a big high percentage of disabled people are in work and do work. So, you know, they just come in to help maintain their life. Or they might be coming because of physio, or the doctor said, right, you're getting older now, you need to start exercising. To maintain it. Because I always say this, don't treat them any differently. I don't want to be treated any differently. You're watching me talk now, and I'm talking like any other guest on this podcast webinar. So literally, it's like treat everyone exactly the same. If they're non-verbal, they might be loud, but that's just, if they're happy, they'll be loud. But it'll be a certain noise for loud. If they're angry, it might be a different noise. But you need to find out what their tics are, what makes them work, and work with them. You can work around them. We ask the carer if they've got any sort of triggers that tricks them off, so them, you know, to avoid it. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. You know, the talking to the carer, you know, is a really, it's really uncomfortable.
And also, if they've got a wheelchair, a chair in the wheelchair, don't get on your knees, because ask them if they're happy for you to be stood up, or if they want you to crouch down. Because actually, a lot of the time, they don't want you to get on your knees at their level. They want you at normal height, because that's how they talk to all their friends and everything.
Absolutely.
Or just asking the questions. Would you like me to come down to talk to you, or would you like me up here? And just it's that communication. It's just communicating with them to find out what. And every disabled person will come up with a different answer. So don't ever assume that one person said something that disabled person will. Ask every single one.
Absolutely. And keep the dialogue open. So if somebody says they like this, don't like that, it's going to change as well, you know, so keeping the dialogue open all the time. I think it's really fun. So sorry, I was going to go on to my next question, but you had something else to say. Go on.
And get to know them personally, find out what they like doing, and because they will have like a social life, a personal life. So I am here. I just got to let the cat out of the room. I didn't know the cat was in the room.
So as Sam lets the cat out the room, I've got to be honest, I've had to shut mine out in the garden, because basically he's been meowing endlessly, because I take him out on walks on a lead. Sam, I was just saying, that
Yeah.
I took the cat out.
I think
Yeah, right. And he's literally been meowing all morning to say, can we go out, please? I'm like, no, we can't. I've got things to do.
I didn't realise the cat was sat on the chair hiding. I could see her jump out. I was like,
Wanted to be
I got-
part of
I
the.
got-
He's gone now. It's all right. We're safe.
He's
Right.
gone,
I'm going to
he's
ask you the
gone.
next question.
Yeah.
We've actually covered quite a bit of this actually. So you were talking about CP, and you have used the term cerebral palsy as well, but and you've explained about deaf and hearing impaired and stuff, and there, this sort of I guess it's that the language and terms that are used, and it's ever evolving, isn't it? And thank God it's always evolving,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's quite hard to stay on top of it and saying the right thing. I just want to there's Scope have this sort of part on their website called End the Awkward, and that's all about sort of inclusive language, and they do it in a really refreshing way. So if anyone is interested, you could check that out. It's called End the Awkward. But I just wanted to know your thoughts, because from what you've told me, and when I've worked with clients with CP, they prefer the term CP rather than cerebral palsy. But again, it's communicating with that client, isn't it, to find out what, and actually being clever enough to listen in to the terms that they may use as well. So what are your thoughts on terms, terminology, language? I think people sometimes are nervous to say the wrong thing.
It is, and actually, it also like the government have on the government website there is a page that has the correct terms on there, and also not what to say. So if you're not sure, that is always updated as well, because obviously it's about not just being politically correct, it's about respecting that person that you're talking to. So language has come a long way. Since I was a kid, when like spastic, special needs, handicap, just all around, they're all gone. So I hate the word special needs. I hate being called special needs. To me, if you call me special needs, it's saying that I'm retarded in the head. And that is how I interpret it. You're saying I've not got a brain. You're saying that I'm quite thick, that I can't think for myself. I can't do nothing for myself. Yes, you've got special educational needs, but that is completely different. That is for people, that is only used for disabled children in full-time education. Once they come out of education, it becomes a person with a disability. Oh, that's Sam, she has a physical disability. Or even better, that's Sam, she has cerebral palsy. It's always the first person. So you're recognising the person before the actual disability. So you don't go, oh, they've got special needs. That is just wrong in every sense of the word. Yes, there's some disabled people that don't mind that. I've got a client that doesn't mind it. But for me personally, it depends how that individual understands that. For me, I just don't think it's a word that we should be using to describe a disabled person. You should be putting that disabled person as a person first, then their disability. It's not, oh, she's got special needs. Oh, that sounds, it is always the first person first, then the disability. Oh, that's Johnny. Johnny's got Down syndrome, or Johnny's got a learning disability, or Johnny's deaf, or Johnny's visually impaired, or Johnny's got a spinal cord injury. It's always the person, then the disability. And it's about, so all these like spastic, retard, special needs, handicap, we don't ever use any of that no more. And we're getting away from that. And if you are talking about children, it is SEN, or additional needs. So it's just trying to make sure, and I still see instructors in the advertising, special needs welcome, and I'm like, I'm pulling my hair out because I'm like, no.
Interesting. I mean, as a non-disabled person, if I hear that in language, I will mention it. I really do. I try and do the work and work on that, and it's not it's everybody's responsibility to do the work and to help others. It's not your job, Sam, to correct the whole of the UK. You know, we can all advocate for, you know, correct terminology and, you know, advocate for accessibility and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the things that it's okay to get it wrong
Yes.
and then be corrected or try harder.
Yes.
You know, the whole talking, you remember when you were saying about the communicating thing, I think I've, you know, been good at that for a long time. But I really, at first, I remember, you know, particularly if there was somebody else there, there's sometimes, you know, like you, and I was like, no, I've got to be talking to my person I'm looking after.
And the other thing
It's
I always
practice.
see is, and the other thing I always see is they always say, "Oh, wheelchair bound." No, that person is not bound to their wheelchair. They use
Yes,
their wheelchair. It is their legs.
user,
It's
absolutely.
their legs. They can get up. Believe it or not, they don't sleep in their wheelchairs. They do get out of their wheelchairs and go to bed, or sit on the sofa, or try to
Absolutely.
sit in a chair in a restaurant. So they're not actually tied and bound to that wheelchair.
I know, I know.
It is a wheelchair. They use their wheelchair, a wheelchair user. So
Bound
they,
sounds like limitation, doesn't it? Rather
yeah,
than I'm a user of a wheelchair, which is
yeah,
I choose, you know, I choose to
yeah.
do it.
And then some people, if they've got a spinal cord injury, they're paralysed, they haven't got a choice to use a chair. But that chair is their legs. It gets you
Mm.
from A to B. So, you know, always think
Yeah,
about how you talk to people, because I do know a lot of disabled people in wheelchairs get annoyed when someone says, "Oh, you're bound to your wheelchair." It's, "Oh, you're wheelchair bound." No, they're not. That is their freedom. That means they can go out the house, they can go to the shop, they can go to the pub, they could go on holiday, and believe it or not, they do get on a plane and travel, which a lot of people don't understand. But literally, they can actually. It gives them their freedom, and that, and so getting away from that language of, like,
yeah,
again, bound. That's not how we
we do it. Yeah,
describe
absolutely.
a person that uses a wheelchair.
I mean, I think one of the great things about attending a disability or qualification, I should say, is that that does help with language. And you know, for me, any time and helping educate people on anything, you gotta practice. You gotta practice. You've gotta, you know, to become good at something, you have to be, you know, willing to try. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the
And,
thing, isn't it?
and every course I've done, because it matter if it's a fitness course, a sports course, I've done some disability sports courses, it's been covered on every single one. So I've done many sort of like group exercises where you've been given like a pack of cards with like words on, and you've got to split them out to what is acceptable, what isn't, and what's in the middle. And that's a very good exercise to do, because you're knowing, right, I can say that, I can't say that. This is like maybe it's in the middle, but it depends on that individual personally.
Yeah. It's a really weird one. You know, sometimes when I hear something and I just say, oh, you know, and I sort of try and explain, people can get really defensive about it. And,
And yeah,
you know, and it's really interesting. And it's kind of like on all areas of inclusivity, it's really interesting how some people are not willing to make that shift. And I think, and it's just a really odd one. And, you know, I just, you know, encourage everybody to just try, because it's, you know, if it was me, I'd be really hoping that people would make the
and
effort to,
and I think it's the same with the actual names of the other conditions. So,
yeah,
like people with CP, because cerebral palsy does not really
mm,
explain the actual. Yes, it explains the damage, as in the cerebral is the brain, the palsy is how the body is moved, but it doesn't exactly explain how we present every day. So that's why people with like CP refer to CP, because it's when it's easier for all of us to say, because we have a speech impediment, but
yeah,
also it's because we prefer saying, to us, CP represents that we've got more than actually saying cerebral palsy. You look
yes,
at multiple sclerosis, you see people call it MS more than multiple sclerosis. or MND. People don't say motor neuron disease, they say MND. So it's the same, always ask that person what they prefer their condition. So
Yeah.
would they prefer cerebral palsy, they prefer CP, they prefer MS or multiple sclerosis. So always ask them what they prefer individually, how you refer to their condition.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sam. We've got one last question. It's flying by.
Woo!
Oh, I know. And my cat's not hanging at the window trying to get in. Well, I don't think so. I don't think that. Right. This is my last question. So, can you let us know your thoughts on the lack of visibility and also representation? How does a non-disabled person be an advocate and not fall into the trap of tokenism?
It's a good question.
Good question.
Two questions in one, really. So I'm going to target one, like answer one and answer the other one.
Yeah.
I think the first one, I did the second bit first.
Okay.
I don't live around, if that makes sense. So we don't like to be, we don't, a lot of people, non-disabled people like to use this as inspirational porn, as we call it. They go, oh, look at Sam, she's got CP, she's so inspirational, she's such a warrior. And we
Yeah.
don't like that word. We just live in our daily life. Just like you, we just doing what we are doing to be
Yeah.
lead our best life. So it's to try and avoid the whole inspirational porn, basically. So yes, we might be inspirational to you, but we're just doing, like, I'm doing my job. I'm doing what I'm good at,
Yeah.
or I'm working with other disabled people that want to be treated like an adult. They don't want to be called a warrior. They don't want to be called like, oh, you're so inspirational for going to the gym. They come to the gym because they like it, they enjoy it. If they didn't enjoy it, they wouldn't be at the gym. You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
so it's just getting away from that whole sort of, you know, sort of, I can't think of, inspirational porn is the only way I can describe it, basically. So
Perhaps, I guess, there may be people that like to oversell the idea that they work with a certain clientele to raise their profile.
yes.
And that may be in a way, for I always love humble trainers who are just doing the work and just, so people
Yeah.
shouting from the head tops, shouting from the rooftops, going, look at me because what I do, it's, I mean, yeah, I do get what you're saying. I think, as a non-disabled person, it's this really fine line of, wanting to, for me, it's great where I can speak to somebody with lived experience, but again, I don't want to, and I said at the beginning of the chat, I don't want Sam James to now become the ambassador for everybody, because that's not fair. You are, an expert in this area. That's why I want to speak to you. And of course, I've tapped into a little bit of your lived experience, but your experience of being a amazing educator, presenter, all those things. But, like I say, as a non-disabled person, I'm thinking, oh, I don't, I never want to get it wrong. I can, of course I can, and I will
And I
always
think
be keen to learn,
And I think sometimes, and it's another thing is, like a lot of disabled people get, oh, you'll be, I'm praying for you, you'll be cured. And again, that's we can never be cured. We will never be able to go back to being a non-disabled person. We have it without this for life, and that happens quite a lot. And I think, again, I think people do it to make themselves feel better about themselves. If they don't know how to talk to a disabled person,
Yeah.
they get a bit nervous talking to a disabled person that actually you shouldn't be. You should just treat them like just talk to them like any other client. Literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have an older client come in, you ask them what conditions they've got. It's no different for a disabled person.
Absolutely.
Exactly the same questions, you talk to them exactly the same way. There's no sort of no, and actually I prefer, yes, I want my disability mentioned, but I don't want it over sensualized. I don't.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I get
and
it. I get
actually,
it.
and actually, like you said, the about the like fitness professionals using it for their own gain. The client that I was talking about, she won a fitness award at the British Fitness Awards, as a participant, but the PT that she was working with used it more for her gain than my client's gain, to make her look good. And
Okay.
that's not what it's about.
No.
So I'm nominated in some awards, and one of my clients says, yeah, I'm not using that to my advantage.
Yeah.
She's done that in her own right. She's worked hard.
Yeah.
And I nominated her because she's worked hard and she deserves the recognition for her hard work, not for my knowledge, not for the knowledge I've given her or for my gain. It is because of the hard work she's put into it to get the results from it. And I
Yeah.
think that is how it should be. Like when I look at Joe Rich, and it's like he's trying to make himself look good by saying, "Oh, I can work with disabled people now," and that's for his own gain. He's not doing it for the disabled people. He's doing it for his own gain. He's sensitising disability for his own good. He's not doing it for the disabled people.
Yeah. I haven't seen enough of it, so I hear what you're saying. I saw some things and I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure how this sits with me, if that makes sense. But I think, for me, if it's a genuine, pull to work with people, then I'm going to applaud it. But I can't comment on that because I just don't know enough. But what I would like to do is dig into that idea of visibility and representation.
Let's get onto that. So obviously at the moment, because was the I start again. I was the first disabled fitness centre in the UK. There's not enough visibility at fitness events, not on stage. And the thing is, every business in the UK has to make regional adjustments for disabled people under the Equality Act. At the moment, all these fitness events are failing that because they're not inclusive to disabled people. At the moment, if a disabled person in a wheelchair were to go to these events, they can't because they're not exactly inclusive. The brands of it, and they've got, is the presenter, are they able to work with that disabled client? Can they adapt for that disabled client? Are they able to have people come in that are seated?
Yeah.
And that is the question. And having a disabled presenter at that event, it lifts your event up, it lifts it up so that it showcases that one, we can work with disabled people. Two, disabled people can work in the industry. Because there's quite a lot of disabled FitPro's in the industry already, and more are training because they're seeing it help their disability, so they want to help other disabled people.
Absolutely.
So the number of disabled FitPro's is going up and up. So if the disabled number of FitPro's is going up, why is it that there is not enough disabled presenters presenting on stage? We need to encourage brand organisers to at least have one visible disabled, not, yes, there's instructors percentage of hidden disabilities, but you really need visible to be able to get those physical disabilities in and knowing how to, and work with us to get those brand, those event organisers to work with people like me to say, oh, can you come and do a sweep of the venue? Can you tell us what you want to make it accessible? But that's not happening. And anything like say making sure that whatever the event it is, you've got having someone talk about disability from a disabled FitPro, not a non-disabled person talk about disability. You need to have an active, visible disabled person talking about inclusion, talking about, if we're talking from the heart, we see it ourselves, we lived it all our lives. So having someone like me talk is going to be more educational than you talk about disability because you're not disabled yourself.
Yeah.
And the biggest one for me, I think, apart from, I know the event can be sentenced a big one for me. The next one is all these fitness companies, like activewear, like people that are like in posters, they're not using true disabled people. If you're a clothing company, why aren't you using disabled FitPro's to model your clothes?
Yes.
We are the real disabled people. And again, they might use a token showing a wheelchair as a disabled person. Yet only 8% are in disabled people in wheelchairs. So again, it's making sure, and I know I said this to you earlier, that it's still got the purple pound, and the purple pound is, I'm going to tell you how much it is in a minute, but it's how much money that is in a disability community that's not being spent. So this could be spent, but it's not because of a lack of accessibility. And this purple pound in the UK alone is worth £249 billion. I'm going to say that again. That's 249 billion. That's not thousands or millions, that's billion. So that's a lot of money that's
The
not
UK.
been spent in the UK
Yes.
where it could be. So if you get yourself, if you get your bench qualified, you've got disabled presenters, you've got your your leggings company or your clothing company more accessible.
Yes.
You are a training company and you use a disabled tutor or a disabled tutor in your advertising. That is going to tap into that market and you are going to reap the rewards. Because if you can tap into that 249 billion, oh my God, your business
Funny.
is going to be like
Yes.
reaping the rewards of that. And
Yeah.
at the moment, it's not being spent due to stuff we said, not qualified instructors, lack of accessibility, lack of training, nothing on websites. All these amount to that £249 billion
Yeah,
not being
absolutely.
spent.
It's
And
astonishing.
it's
isn't
a
it?
lot of money. And
It
I
is.
know those places that I've like wanted to go to, but I can't because I can't get in them.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and they're never going to get my money, or they haven't got a disabled changing room, so I can't try stuff on, and I'm not just going to buy something and take it back. So if it might
Yeah,
not fit, I'm going to try it on.
absolutely, absolutely. 249 billion. Wow. It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I think, you know, there's some really fascinating stats that you've pulled for us. Is there any others that you wanted to mention just at the
There is, I forgot to mention, it's 16 million disabled people in the UK. 16 million. Those 16 million people have a spending power of 249 billion. That says it all.
Yeah, absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. That's
you know,
significant.
it
I,
is.
sorry, Sam. I was just going to come back to like representation and visibility and stuff, and you know, my job in marketing and stuff, and having to pull imagery together for courses that not just a disability qual, but you know, lots of different courses. And my responsibility is to make sure the imagery is representative of lots of people. And it's really, really hard. You know, not just trying to get it right in inverted commas. I want to get it right because that's the absolute right thing to do. But you know, if you look up you know, fitness and disability, you will always see the person being trained in, not always, but mostly it's the person using a wheelchair being trained. It's not the instructor using a wheelchair training somebody with a disability or a non-disabled person. It's just a really interesting thing that we think we've come so far, and yet there's so much more that
And
we can be doing.
and
Yeah.
actually, I know we had this conversation before. Is I don't just work with disabled clients. Most of I teach like fitness classes, and virtually all my fitness classes, bar my seating, all my standing ones,
Mhm.
are to non-disabled people.
Yeah.
And people I've had, like, I cover for other people. They've walked in, they've been like, "Oh, you're an instructor," but then they do it, and then they are shocked at the end, or they don't know how I teach stuff that I can't demonstrate, and I always do that through verbal coaching. So I can't, for example, I can't do a quad stretch, but
Mhm.
I verbally cue them into it. So I always say, right, bring your heel to your bum, hold on to whatever, like what is easier for them. And then I talk them through the stretch, how to
Yeah.
make it harder, and then I get them to change legs and do the same again. So, you know, and that is why and again, there should be more disabled people working in the industry. So if you have disabled people apply for jobs, take them on. We need to make this change so that there's more visibility across the board, not just for clients, but within the industry as a whole. We need to be championing disabled people, not just as PTs, teaching classes as well. Like my classes at the centre I teach at, I've been there 10 years this year, and they're fully booked.
Mm.
And I signed off for 6 months last year. 50% didn't come because I wasn't there. They only just started to come back now when I'm back. So
Yeah.
the classes should obviously going back up again because I've
Amazing.
returned, which shows that it's not my disability. They come from me and how I teach, the style of classes that I'm doing, and they actually enjoy it because they didn't want to go and have a class be taught by a non-disabled instructor because they didn't enjoy her class.
It's so funny. It's so funny, isn't it? How people who are like your regular clients, like someone else turns up and they're like, it's
I
okay.
don't like it.
Yeah, I know, it's so funny, isn't it? And they're like, oh, we didn't like her as much. And I'm like, look, it's, or I didn't like him as much. And I'm like, look, it doesn't matter. They were here to look after you. So that's really, really nice.
And like the ones that did go were grateful because she covered for 10 months. So I didn't go back to that. I went last class back and they covered for 10 months. And I'm very grateful for that because that class is my baby. It's my first one. So literally, it's my I call it my baby because obviously that's the one that's got me like here. Your first class, it always is.
Absolutely.
And you kept my baby going. So, and the ones that did go enjoyed it because it was your class.
Exactly.
And that, but so yeah, but it is fascinating that how a disabled person can have a fully booked class. Which I know there'll be some people watching this go, what? But again, it's not about what you're doing; it's about how you're verbally cueing, how you're getting them to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Sam, it's been so lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
A
I know
pleasure.
we've had lots of catch-ups already. So I've been, before we did recording, we've done a few meetups and it's been such a delight. And I just want to say thank you for, spending time with us and helping us, champion the right
Thank you.
things and stuff. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to, sort of think on anything that we've missed that you think would be really impactful. Share them.
So, if you own a gym or you've got a fitness band and you want to make sure that it's like very accessible to disabled people, then you can contact me. Or my Inclusive Fit on everything, all social media and just Inclusive Fit. My email is just sam@inclusivefit.co.uk. So any questions, feel free to ask me. If you would like to, again, if you are interested in the disability qual, just contact me and I can give you all the details to that. We've got one coming up in June, so please just, I can give you.
With the amazing Sarah as well, and she's done a lot for FitPro and stuff. So
yeah, tutor for Sarah. So we're both. You've got two of us on the qualification, so you've got double expertise, and literally, we've got like 30 years of working with disabled people between us. So literally, it's one of the best courses I've done, and the fact that she's written the disability qualification manual herself, so she's got my input on it, so you're getting a real true sight into disability, not just someone else's thought process into disability. It is a proper insight into disability.
yeah. So we'll obviously put all the links to your social media and stuff, but thanks for sharing those and offering people. You'll have loads of people contacting you now.
I need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any more work, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, if anyone wants to, I can't speak now. I also talk at events and inclusion, so I can even do like talk here. If you do want, if you've got an event coming up and you want me to talk or even do talk and do a class, I'm more than happy to.
Lovely. Thank you. Yeah, I remember attending the EMD UK thing. You did a great job there. It was different because you weren't talking to anybody else. You got to talk to me. Lucky you. She was presenting like a really great webinar and stuff. And it's very different, isn't it, when you're doing that and you're just talking to a blank screen, but you did it.
I was actually talking to my presentation.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I remember. My
PDFs and and it's really weird because you've got to keep looking at the camera and you're just talking to yourself. And if anyone's out in the house listening, they probably think you're weird, but you're not.
It's so, I know, because you have to sort of like talk like there's someone there. I know it. Sam, it's been really lovely. So we've got they can contact you, they can follow you, and and obviously there's the education that both Sarah and yourself are doing in June that we'll put information down. So FitPro community, before I hand it over to Sam to finish us off, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this webcast. One of the things that I'm really passionate about doing is just championing everybody in the fitness industry and improving it. So it's just amazing, excellent place for us all to live and work in, and certainly looking after all our clients in the best possible way. So thank you. And if there's anything further you would like from FitPro to be talking about or who to talk to, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out to me. I'm teresa.wheatley@fitpro.com. No, I'm not that. That's my email address. Teresa.Wheatley, and I'm Teresa without an H. Just reach out and we'd love to know. Sam, any last words from you before we switch off the recording?
Yes, don't be afraid to work with a disabled client. Don't be afraid to talk to a disabled client. If you do one thing, and that's one thing, is go out and just go. If you see a disabled person, just go and talk to them. Get used to talking to them. Don't be afraid of us. We can be a lot of fun, and we can be just like you guys. So just open your eyes and see what the benefit it can do to your business.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam.
That's
Thank you, FitPro community. We're going to sign off the recording, and probably after we've finished chatting, make sure our cats are okay.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.